Hey, everybody. I want to welcome you back to another episode of Grace, Grit, and Grounds. As you can tell, this is not our regular Thursday broadcast. This is what we call an espresso shot, which is just sort of a quick hit. Although when I say quick hit, it may be a little bit longer. We don't put a time frame on it. And I am going to be interviewing a guest from our church, one of our ministry partners here in Christ Baptist. And we're going to have a good time today as we talk a little bit about his ministry, our passions, our thoughts. And as you know, our overriding theme is grace, grit, and grounds. So if you have yourself a cup of coffee, grab it and let's have a conversation. So with me today, I have Trevor Holshoe. I won't ask you to spell that. And if you're thinking about like, how am I gonna spell that phonetically? You're not. It's not possible. I don't even know. Is it German?
It's super German.
It's super German.
Yeah,
okay.
Way back in the day, I had an ancestor over in Germany. They made wooden clogs. I mean, the translation literally is wooden shoe. I envy those of you who have maybe 4 or 5 letter last names that just look how they sound. The Lord's blessed me in a lot of ways, but I can't say the last name was one of them. That said,
But it's a talking point.
It is.
You know?
It is. And to that point, I always say that I knew my wife genuinely loved me when she went from a last name of Miller to Holshoe. No questions asked. So it's a joke, jokingly there. Who else do you know that has an ancestor who made clogs?
Yeah, there you go. It's interesting. You were born and raised in Northern Kentucky.
Yeah.
And so I'm like a major super transplant. I'm an interloper. I just showed up here one day with my bags in hand and I'm waiting for everybody to kick me out of Northern Kentucky, but that's just me. And you went to the local high school at Campbell County, which we're in Campbell County. And now you didn't do much sports in school. What did you do in school?
I did a little bit of both, academic and sports. So I did academic team, which is
That's a sport.
It's
a sport.
It's a sport of e-gaming, with respect, if you do e-gaming. It's a sport if that is. But it definitely think like Team Jeopardy is the best way I can put it.
Yeah.
I did that from from 4th grade through senior year of high school. So that was my most consistent. Up through middle school as well, I did basketball. But when you get to high school, you can't really do both. But I realized that the academic route would be the better route for me in the grand scheme of things. So
Excellent.
I couldn't do both. I stayed the academic team route.
Yeah. So for those people that don't know much about Northern Kentucky, little history about the area. The reason why you have such a strong German name is that this is an incredibly German area. And when a lot of the immigrants were coming over before the turn of the century, back in the 1800s, 1700s, there was a strong German presence. And they came and sort of built up as Cincinnati was one of the first gateways into the new area. Like this is the launch off for the Midwest and the West and beyond. And you had a huge German presence. This is like meat packing country, which if you know anything about Germans, they love their sausages and the bratwurst.
I mean, Geta Fest is here. Like my wife's from not even an hour north, and she had no clue. She doesn't like Geta. It's one of her she has many, many strong qualities. I like Geta. I don't love Geta, but I do like it. She despises it. Yeah. But she had no clue what that was until she came down here for college, and then ultimately we ended up started dating.
I'd never heard of Geta until I moved here. And Geta, for those of you that don't know what Geta is, think haggis, and you're almost there. I mean, it's not
pork, pinot, seasoning.
Yeah, it's just an odd thing. It's
regional.
It's definitely regional. And if you're born and raised here, I mean, you've pretty much eaten it. You may not like it, but you've eaten it once or twice. If not more.
Yeah.
And they have a whole festival.
Geta Fest. Yeah. I grown up my whole life here. I'd never really gone until the past few years.
Really?
But we didn't go to a lot of the festivals. But now as an adult, married, everything like that. We've gone to some of these more, and I know you had Des on here earlier, so call back. But Des and Joe, her husband, are like the biggest local festival people that I think I know.
Right.
And
do they go to Geta Fest?
Yeah, they go to a lot of the festivals.
Okay.
Not just Geta Fest, but
the next time.
But we did as a small group. We went there this year.
Okay, the next time I was going to have. That's one of the questions I'll ask her next time she comes on. Is her desire or her love for her thoughts on Geta? Not really love for Geta, but her thoughts on Geta. So anyway, hey, I know we could probably talk about
food.
Yeah, for a long time. But I do wanted to dive into some of the things. I mean, the reason why we have you here is because you're part of our ministry team. You're our college pastor. And you've recently gone through the ordination process. And so you've been on staff with us for about 4 years. 4 years, yeah. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that, like what what drew you in, I think,
Sure.
to ministry. And like my first time I ever met you, you were on the pastor search committee that brought me here to the
Correct.
church. And so that was when I first met you. And then
Yeah.
when I came down to preach, you actually drove me around to the college campus
Yeah.
and showed me some of the things, because that's kind of what your focus was. You were
Correct.
partnering with our existing college pastor, which was Justin Minter,
Correct.
and now he's church planting in Atlanta.
Yeah.
So good guy down there.
Mm-hmm.
And that being said, like, that's how I met you.
Yeah.
So I guess the first question is, what first drew you into this ministry role? And was there a moment in your college years that sort of shaped or sort of began that call?
For sure. Yeah, I played basketball up through middle school, but I've always been a huge sports fan, so much so that when I went to NKU, the goal ultimately was to do sports broadcasting. And so that was the heart that, yes.
So I thought about this a lot,
Okay.
and when we were in Alaska, I don't want to interrupt you, but
No, you're
when
good.
we were in Alaska, there was three high schools
Okay.
in the three towns. So there's
Okay.
one high school per town, and they each had their football teams.
Sure.
And the school that my youngest son went to was the smallest and the weakest of the schools.
Okay.
And they were always asking local people to volunteer to be the broadcaster in the booth for the games.
Okay.
And so when you were thinking about this, did you think that maybe you might do some of those local games? Have you ever reached out? Do they do that? I don't even know how they do the local broadcast.
I'm sure they probably do. Like most things in life, it probably comes down to who do you know.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, obviously, having a degree and having experience obviously opens doors as well.
Right.
But if you're talking just local level, a lot of it probably is connections, knowing people.
Yeah.
And if you have a heart for it and there's a level of skill, I would imagine that there probably would be some doors open.
But back to what you're saying.
Yeah. Ultimately, though, like I said, with me, uh, high school and even early college, I got more experience kind of behind the camera than I did in front of. Obviously, that was kind of my heart and my goal. The NKU program gears a little bit more behind the scenes, running cameras, editing video,
Doing producer work.
Yeah, interviews, writing. Yeah, I mean, you can kind of get all of the above, but it's going to lean a little bit more the journalistic producing side more so than in front of the camera. But I guess to really kind of get to the heart of your question is I'm taking these classes. I was also involved with church and everything throughout college and from this area. And I was doing on-campus ministry as well. But as I was in one of my classes and the professor, awesome lady, but biblically in just a lot of ways, we probably couldn't have been much farther apart, I would assume, just based on the things that she would share. But there's one day in class where she goes, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, what do you hope your life looks like? What do you hope is? And everyone's like, I hope I've got a great job that pays well. I hope I have a new vehicle, a house. Like none of these things are bad. These are actually really good things. But what hit me that day, and I think this is kind of the Lord's wake up call, was even these good things. A lot of my peers, like everything they're putting their hope in was very worldly and very temporal. I just remember leaving that particular class period. It was a communications class. Like my heart felt heavy. It was kind of grieved. And again, class was fine by all measures. It wasn't like there was anything terribly sad. It just kind of slapped me upside the face. Like outside of the Christian bubble, there's people who might not be outwardly super hurting, but like they're putting their hope in things that are good, but not God. I know that's very almost cliche, but it was so true. And I think over I was probably my sophomore year in college, that and just some relationship stuff. There was kind of multiple fronts where I think the Lord just kind of slapped me upside the head and kind of woke me up. That kind of started the better part of about a year journey for me, where the Lord really kind of showed me a calling and continued to develop my passion for ministry.
That's exciting. I was thinking about that. I have a bunch of questions that I thought I would ask, and we might get to them. We probably won't. It occurred to me as we were talking, the need on the college campuses.
Yeah, and sometimes it's right in your face, but a lot of the times it's some students don't even know that there's a need or something within them, or at least not that they outwardly project. Or so sometimes it's a little bit veiled, but there's a ton of need there.
I was talking to one of our other ministry partners, Josh Kipper, which I'm probably gonna have to get him on one of these episodes at some point, and he runs the BCM.
Yep.
And he was saying, statistically speaking, he said anywhere between 85 to 90% of the students on the college campus are lost and have no relationship with God whatsoever. And most of them aren't even seeking.
Yeah, and that number might even be a little bit low,
Yeah.
candidly. But the numbers are the numbers. On the low end, 85, 90%. It could be as high as 95%
Wow.
of a given college campus.
So that's like the
NKU's
front lines. That's where the front lines of the battle. I can't get any more front line
Correct.
than that.
Correct.
When I was in Belgium, we would tell folks that were coming over that wanted to be a part of the ministry or wanted to support what we were doing over there, and we would tell them that less than 1% of the population in Belgium were evangelical, less than 1%. And so I lived that for almost 10 years over there, and that's hard. It's not that these are bad people. These are decent people that just trying to live life, but mostly they were just ambivalent. There was a level of apathy towards Christianity. And I see that in the culture, and I think that college campuses can be like this microcosmic distillation of the culture. And so if you think of all the weird, odd things that we complain of what the broader culture is, it's like it's all condensed down into the college campuses. So if we say the nation is by and large not as Christian as we would like, not as saved as we would like, then the college campuses are almost like a condensed version of that. And still 95%. It blows my mind that anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, there's absolute spiritual need there. Again, it's part of my story. I grew up in the church, but there was some very real sin that kind of came into my life when I was in college and so kind of that paired with, like I said, that seemingly innocuous experience in that class where it just kind of hit me that, man, there's a ton of people that I do care about, and they're just putting their hopes entirely in things of this world.
Yeah.
So that plus just some sin that was in my life, seeing the Lord move in some ways I'd never really seen him move before. I always tried to follow the rules growing up, but with college, there's a lot more freedom and temptations, and so you can't lie to yourself. There was just some sins I was struggling with and to be fair, like, you should not justify sins away.
Right.
But that was something as a 17, 18, 19-year-old I was kind of guilty of, candidly.
I think you see that seems to be the college trope, I guess you see in all the movies and books and just in real life, the idea that, well, I'm going to go to college and I'm going to explore, I'm going to find myself, I'm going to do this. And so all the things that you were forbidden from doing when you were a kid that your mom and dad wouldn't, it's like all of a sudden there's no mom or dad saying no. And I know it's a trope. I know it's something we joke around about, but it's a real thing.
It is. Okay. In high school, you get kind of put in this box. I was kind of hard to put in one box because I could hang out with the nerds and no one would question it. I could hang out with the athletes and no one would really question it. But I could hang out with either group no problem because my interests were kind of intertwined. Right. And so I didn't fit cleanly in this box, but you're still kind of stereotyped, at least in the public high school. And as much as you might act like, man, I don't care what people think about me, like, you do. You do. And so you get to college, and all of a sudden you see people running around, in between classes, hitting each other with foam swords, and no one bats an eye.
Right.
In high school, there would be people who would not treat those people nicely.
Right.
And so, but in college, you could kind of be whoever you wanted to be. And so there's some good that comes with that. But
you almost find a group for every person.
Yeah. Yes. Even if you were kind of a little bit of an outsider, KU's not a ginormous college, but you're still looking, 16, 18,000 people, give or take. It's something in that ballpark, maybe 15. There is no high schools in this area that are that number. So, it's just, you will find a group on that college campus.
So one more question about your past. We'll move on to some of the other stuff I want to talk about. This really, it's not only past so much as looking at, as you were moving into the ministry, I've always been real fascinated with people that are young and take up this role. I remember my story is coming into the ministry. I did it kicking and screaming. I didn't want to be a pastor. I didn't want this road. I had a different plan for my life. And obviously God and I, we fought about it. But now that you're in this, what are some of the doubts, some of the concerns, some of the things that sort of plague you as, like, are there thoughts that you might be able to toss to other people and say, well, this is what's been going on in my brain.
Yeah.
And how God's been able to work with you through that.
So I'm no different than anyone else. I have insecurities. I
Sure.
have
Yeah.
doubts. And ministry has a way of kind of bringing those to the
They
forefront at
do.
times. So with college, as amazing as it is in a lot of ways, you can have people telling you, "Oh, I'm coming," and then the last second,
Yeah.
something comes up, and
Yeah.
presumably something comes up. They could just be decide I'd rather watch home or rather go back to my dorm or go home and watch something on TV.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they can tell me it's something really important that came up or something unexpected. And I'm not going to know any different.
Right.
Youth ministry is hard in its own way.
Right.
But you do have parents there until the kid kind of gets the freedom to drive. But like you do have parents that help keep the kids accountable. And when you get young adults, college students, like even if they're living at home, parents don't really have the ability to say, "Hey, you have to go to," because this would be spiritually beneficial sort of thing. So
Right.
that's one of the hardest things with this demographic is you can do a lot of legwork, but you don't completely know who's coming on Thursday night until they physically walk in the door.
That touches on something that I think a lot of us struggle with, and this is a common theme in humankind, that we were created for community. I mean, obviously, and so even as pastors, as ministers, like we're not Iron Men that just do it all on our own, and so we're just as much created for that community. And so when rejection happens, and rejection takes many forms,
It
like
does.
it could just be like you're on the college campus, you're talking to a student, and they're like, "No." And turn around and walk away.
But that's the hard thing. You don't actually get a lot unless it's someone who is just almost very outspoken, almost against like the idea of faith or Christianity. Most people are going to be pretty cordial.
Precisely, because we're trained to be polite, you know, but it's that soft rejection, I think, that hurts the most. It's the, "Hey, yeah, I'll see you on Thursday," and you've talked to them 2 or 3 times on campus, you've even paid for their lunch once, Thursday shows up, and you don't even get a text to say the courtesy text saying, "Hey, by the way, thank you for buying me lunch, but I'm not gonna come."
And so that again, that's one of the hardest parts, particularly about college and career with what I'm doing.
We own that.
Yeah, and
it's like that hits us where we live. Like you're not just rejecting God or this time frame. You know, sometimes you almost feel like you're rejecting me.
Because it's just it's tough because it's hard not to take it personally at times.
Yeah.
I get along pretty well with most everybody, but like I genuinely don't think that people are necessarily saying no to me. But at the same point in time, because like certainly within ministry, numbers are not everything. Those that the Lord brings to you that He allows you to minister to, the answers are never in me. They're never in you. They come through the Spirit. They come through God. But if we're doing what we're called to do and we're striving to push them towards spiritual growth and we're seeing spiritual victories in their life, we're not doing a bad job. But still, like the numbers do matter.
That is unfortunate. I hate to say that. I mean, we say numbers don't matter, but if we were running a business like McDonald's or Taco Bell and we're getting 30 customers as opposed to 3,000, we wouldn't be in business.
Correct.
So it does on some level.
And so that's kind of the hard thing is you can do everything in your power because, again, these are adults. I treat them like adults. My peers, when we host our friends, like we can say, "Hey, we'd love to have you over," but you know, they got to make the decision. We'll come over, sort of thing. It's kind of that same way of like, again, these are adults; they get to make their own decisions. But the hard thing is when they're coming and then they don't quite show up. So that's one of the hardest things. And then the last thing I'll add, I don't have a seminary degree, and trust me, that is not the end all be all. You learn a lot more from doing than just by sitting in a class. But if you're talking about like the hard things, the insecurities, my story, I feel like is a but God story. Like I wouldn't be in my situation but for God. I've reached a point. I'm in a position where probably a lot of people wouldn't be without the degree, but just God opened doors and made pathways. In that way, reaffirm like, hey, this is what I want you to be doing because I'm not the most qualified person from a ministry degree. Yeah. And so that also at times can play into insecurities. What I have to remind myself is again that God's given me this calling, and there is a level of giftedness. I can talk with students. I can provide value to students' lives. And when I'm on campuses, I have really good conversations with students. It's just the hard thing is truly getting them really completely plugged in consistently within the ministry.
So I had a couple other questions before. I do know you're not only working on the Northern Kentucky University campus, but you're also working on Thomas More.
Yeah.
And so what kind of excites you the most about the serving and working with the students of both campuses? I know they're different,
They are.
but what excites you the most about serving both those college campuses?
So NKU, I'll start with that because that is, I mean, obviously that's where I went to college. That's kind of the campus I know the best. It's really the one where it's most easy to kind of be passionate about just
Mhm.
because I saw how much my life changed and grew in my time on campus and how much my faith in Jesus grew as a college student at NKU. Thomas More is a little bit more unreached,
Mhm.
smaller campus.
It is a Catholic college, and I've known a few people that have gone there and graduated from there, but they have said the same thing, that there just isn't as much of a Christ presence, there, but it seems like people don't go there because they want to draw closer to God,
Yeah, no,
even though it's a Catholic
what
college.
I found are people who go there because they have that kind of that grew up in the Catholic church, went to the Catholic school, and
Right.
they're in Northern
And
Kentucky
we have a
area.
lot of Catholic
Yeah,
schools
yeah,
here in this area, which
yeah.
more than I'm used to.
Yeah, most of the rest of the state of Kentucky is not. Very rarely do you like once you get probably about 30 minutes south,
Yeah,
unless you hit maybe Lexington and Louisville might have some Catholic churches, but a lot of the more rural areas in the rest of the state, very very
yeah,
sparse Catholic population. But
mm,
Northern Kentucky, kind of the greater Cincinnati area, it is
yeah.
pretty heavy, and so you will
We
find a
have
lot of people with that background who are at Thomas
we have
More.
one of the biggest Catholic high schools in the area, right?
Covington
Covington Catholic.
Catholic, yeah,
Yeah, and I mean, they're sports-wise, they're usually
they're really
pretty.
good.
Oh, that's cool. So here's the last question on this, and it comes back to motivation.
Yeah,
As in the ministry, like, we don't have people driving us with
yeah,
time clocks and, like, requirements to get up, like, I'm gonna be at work, I'm gonna be in the office at 9. If I'm not there, 5 minutes late. So a lot of this comes back to our own internal motivations,
yeah.
and we don't always feel like doing ministry every day, just like, I don't feel like being social every day. So what keeps you going when in the ministry, when even the ministry itself feels slow, like things just aren't doing what they want to, like, what keeps you moving forward? And we could say God.
Well,
That's a
yeah,
Sunday school answer, but
it
that's
is.
not a good
Yeah,
answer.
no, 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 no,
I
no.
mean, it's a good
It
answer, but
is.
it's not,
Yeah.
you know.
I think what I've got to be reminded of is this is what I longed for. This is what I was becoming passionate about. And yeah, some days it is still a job. But if you would have told me as a 21-year old just kind of developing this passion, kind of just starting to feel like the Lord was calling me to this, that I'd be in this position for 4 years and I'd have the community that I have, like how blessed would I have considered myself to be back then?
Yeah.
And so I think not forgetting that is certainly a part of it. But even on those hard days, the grass isn't greener elsewhere. Where else would I go? I believe could be capable of working a good number of jobs and being a productive employee. But would I be passionate about it?
Mm.
Would it be any more than a job and a paycheck?
When I have to do substitute teaching, or like last year, I taught a couple hours in the morning
Hmm.
every day at the local high school, and I enjoyed that. But I mean, I'll be honest, I don't like getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning every
Yeah.
morning, and I don't always enjoy driving in and dealing with the traffic and the people. And again, being up at 6 o'clock in the morning, I like to take my morning slow. I like to have a nice
Hmm.
cup of coffee and
Which
just
ministry?
sit.
I'll be straightforward with you guys. If you're not in ministry, most of the time, it's not impossible that someone could want you early morning, but more times than not with ministry, we're pretty fortunate in that regard that
Yeah.
most days we're not having.
I don't normally have to get up at 6
No,
AM unless
no,
they're doing a men's breakfast or an event.
yeah,
Typically, it's a little later. I can sit down, watch the
yeah,
sunrise,
yeah,
drink a cup of coffee, and just enjoy the morning.
hmm,
But I looked at the face of the kids that I was working with, because I'm working with
hmm,
SPED kids.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
so we have kids that are like, I have in one class, I had kids that were high functioning, autistic, brilliant kids that were sophomores and juniors in high school, taking college level classes and doing math and science at a high level uh, in high school, but they're in my SPED class because of the autism. And then that same class, I have kids that are so much lower
yeah,
intellectually, and I'm looking at their varying stories. And for me, it was what kept me getting up early and going in wasn't to get a job, wasn't a paycheck. It
hmm,
wasn't because I had to. It was because of the kids that I'm looking at there, their stories, and I'm thinking, if I'm not there, then who's speaking into their lives?
Yeah, and exactly that. Like when I'm on the college campus, I have goals, and there's some days where I do some tabling where I'm specifically going to be in one
Right.
spot, and when we're advertising Christ culture and Christ Baptist Church and different things like that. But by and large, that's not the majority of days. The majority of days, I'm going to college campus. I'm not dressed up right now because I just came from a meeting with a student on the college campus, and this is what they wear. They are comfy,
Yeah.
but you're just most of the time I'm going there to trusting that the Lord and the whole with the Holy Spirit's guidance will lead me into conversations with people.
Yeah.
Now, perfect world, Lord willing, they plug in maybe Sunday morning, Thursday night with us here at church at Christ Baptist and with Christ Culture. Statistically, that's not the majority of them. The majority of them, I'll be lucky, even if I have a great conversation with them, I'll be lucky to get them to even come on Thursday.
Right.
But still, can I plant seeds? And that's the hard thing. Like we want to see all these things happen, but can I plant seeds, or maybe this conversation allows me to be the person who does a watering of a seed previously planted, and so that's a lot of it too. Is maybe I'm a stepping stone towards someone coming to know Jesus as Lord and Savior.
I think in every ministry, it doesn't matter what level you're in, youth, college, larger ministry, there is a season for everything. And Scripture talks about that, especially in Ecclesiastes. There's a time for everything, where there are times where you have a season of planting and a season of harvest, but you can't skip the planting. Like you can't just, everyone wants to jump into the harvest because that's the fun, right? That's when you're gathering the sheaves in. That's when you're going to have the big feasts and you have all
And
the
that's
people.
also when you get the pat on the back.
Right. Everybody's like, oh, you're doing so good.
Yeah.
But it's the planting part. I mean, you can't harvest if you don't plant.
Yeah.
And so you have to have those times in those seasons of
planting. And you never know what plant's going to be harvested.
You don't. Sometimes it can be potatoes.
So again,
sometimes it's wheat.
Yeah. And so again,
know.
why go to the campus? Because there's some days where you don't completely feel it, and where maybe you've dealt with some rejection on the campus or whatever. Like
we just gotta keep going.
You never know.
Keep going. So this is a question that I was thinking about this, and you had mentioned the name of your group, which is Christ Culture. When I first came here to the church, the college ministry was just simply called Christ College because we're Christ Baptist, and I saw the connection. And when our previous fella went, he left and to go to other ministries, and you stepped in his place. So you were sort of his understudy, if you will,
for a year.
Yeah, and he was training you and getting you ready for something. You stepped into this role, and then you shortly afterwards changed the name.
Yeah,
and we called it Christ Culture. So if someone were to ask you, and I'm sure you get this question often on campuses, what is the heart of Christ Culture? How would you describe it?
College career ministry. Our goal is to draw you closer to Jesus, whatever that looks like. If it's someone who doesn't have a relationship with Jesus, doesn't know him as Lord and Savior, well, the hope is that even if they don't believe in Jesus, maybe we can, in talking with them, maybe get another story, they can make, maybe they had a bad stereotype or a bad rap of what Christianity was, or didn't understand it. Like, person cares for me, even though we don't agree, or I'm not where they're at, or something.
Well, that's exactly what Jesus did.
Yeah.
Often he would meet the physical needs or the community needs. I mean, look at the lepers.
Yeah.
These are individuals that are pushed out of every level of community, and so they wanted to be healed. But what did they really want healing? They wanted their body healed, yes, but ultimately they wanted to be restored back to the community. So when they were healed, then Jesus would say, go to the priest. And they had to do that in order to be restored to the community. So just being healed wasn't enough. They also had to be restored to the community. And so I think that's part of what you're doing, right? Is you're reaching into this community and you're trying to give them a space and open up opportunities for them to be part of the culture we're trying to build.
And it's not even just college and career. I mean, I changed the name because, for instance, one of my leaders, and he's also one of my absolute best friends now, he didn't do one day of college. He went straight from high school to the workforce. Well, Christ College is well intended as it is. He's not going to feel quite like
pigeonholed. I didn't go to college.
Exactly.
Right.
And so if someone just goes to the workforce, newsflash, they still need community. They can be the world's best whatever, and the job that they're in, they see that as their mission field, not only just how they make their money, but their mission field.
Yeah.
If you never went to college, a group called Christ College might be kind of hard. Or conversely, not everyone that's a Christian or graduates college and immediately gets their dream job, gets married, starts a family.
Sometimes you work for Starbucks.
Yeah. You can get the degree and have an GPA.
In fact, you've got somebody in your ministry. It's like that. Who actually graduated from sports broadcasting.
Yes. And he's still doing some journalism right now.
But he's
also working on NKU's campus while he's trying to get a full-time job in journalism.
At the food court.
He is.
Because you got to feed yourself.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And so, and that's a great example. Not everyone's just launching off and doing everything that they ultimately hope to be able to do in this lifetime immediately. You still need that community. Again, Christ College could also be limiting because that 23, 24-year-old still needs that community, and it's Christ College. Well, I'm not a college student anymore.
Yeah.
So that was the heart behind the name change. There's nothing wrong with the name, but just there's a couple groups and people that we've actually been able to probably pour into that without the name change. Maybe not. I don't know.
Names are always so important to me. And when I was a youth pastor years and years ago, the first thing I would do in every youth group is to try to get it branded, not because I want to make T-shirts and make money. I wanted it because I wanted to create a sense of identity with the group. Yeah. And so being able to put a name on something and then have that identity wrapped around it's important. Like, for instance, like I've thought long and hard about what I want to call this podcast. And I came up with Grace, Grit, and Grounds. Partially because of the alliteration. I'm a preacher. I love alliteration. The other part of it is it's three of the things that I think for me in our Christian walk is one of the most important things. Grace is the foundation of everything. Grit for me is the more I think about it, the more I dwell on it. It just hits me like, what makes you move when everything else in your world tells you to stay down? When the devil's standing over you and you're bloody and beaten down, you're lying on the ground and you've just taken some major hits. Like, what makes you get up off that mat and keep battling? For me, it's grit. And so that's what I love about it. And then of course, Grounds from a grounded theology. So I'm throwing that name out there. You talked a little about Christ culture. When I throw those names out there, Grace, Grit, and Grounds, what are your thoughts? What jumps out at you?
Yeah, so obviously, again, grace is a large part of my story. But for me personally, I was someone who always grew up in church, tried to follow the rules. I probably was leaned legalistic for a lot of my growing up here, just because spiritual immaturity, not a proper understanding of the gospel message.
It's easier to follow the rules.
Yeah. Well, it is and it isn't.
Well,
we actually break a lot more rules than we care to admit,
But we liked having because we like structure.
And I could say, well, hey, I'm doing better than X, Y, and Z because I'm not doing X, Y, and Z.
Right.
So like those are sort of things like growing up, like I kind of prided myself on that. College campus is so special and so important to me is because I was still very spiritually immature.
Right.
And despite the fact I grew up in church, tried to follow all the rules, like there's just a lot of things I was missing. And so I was there again, there was just some sin that was present in my life early on in college and not even terribly bad things. Like even just with relationships, like I made him an idol, like dating in particular, because I'd never dated in high school. So you get to college and I thought, man, I'm going to be totally happy when I get a girlfriend.
Right. And you hang all your thoughts on that.
Yeah. And it became something that is not a bad desire, but became an absolute idol. And when something's in that position, it becomes sin. It's just, that's how it is. And so
I call that the if only principle.
Okay.
Like, if only I had this, my life would be this. And so
plot twist, it's not.
No, it's not. But you think that in your head because you have this if only. When I was in high school, I had this really it was a I
really wasn't sure where you were going with that one. I was hoping it wasn't girlfriend.
No. It was I didn't have a girlfriend.
Okay, me too.
And so I blamed it on my really ugly van. So like some guys had cool vans, like they had like the big wheels and the tinted windows and had the shag carpet.
Which decade was this, Al?
This was in the 80s.
shag carpet in your van.
No, I did not have that. And mine looked more like a weird church van than it did an actual like van. And it was huge. It was hard to drive. It was ugly. And I said, if only I had a smaller, cooler car, I would get a girlfriend. Well, I didn't get one.
I as much as I'm poking fun at you right now, I had a hand-me-down mom van through junior, senior year when I drove it to school. I don't think that was my limiting factor.
No, but in my mind it was. But I realized it said if only.
Did it make me cooler? No.
Yeah.
But moral of the story, like, I can relate to that. I had that as well. But yeah, just in general, like I said, I was growing a lot early in college, but there's some sins that like I couldn't try to logically justify away, but I'm still seeing the Lord's grace really in my life.
Right.
But that's grace. Grit, I think we need to have it as pastors, because you have to have that grit, I think, to have some staying power
Just sort of
within
keep moving
ministry.
forward.
How can we tell our people to, even in their worst days, that the Lord is still good, that He's
Right.
still faithful, that He still has a plan and a purpose and a future
Right.
for us, if we're wanting to throw in the towel? And so I think we have to have grit from just our career, because a lot of times we have to admit life's difficult in the season.
Yeah.
Ministry's difficult in the season.
And
So we've got to have it personally. How can we serve our people well, and show them to have grit, and encourage that in them if they
yeah.
don't?
Yeah.
And then grounds, it's got to be spiritual, because I don't drink coffee.
I feel for you. I'll pray for you. I didn't drink coffee at your age either. I didn't start drinking coffee until I was in my 30s.
Okay.
And it's the Germans. I'll blame it on the Germans.
Okay.
So I've already shared
Maybe
this.
I'm immune then.
Well, I'm gonna in my previous one of my previous podcasts I talked about this, but I had a friend of mine who told me when I told him I didn't want any coffee, he says, "But you've never had German coffee."
Okay.
So and I hadn't.
Okay.
And so I had German coffee and I was hooked.
Huh.
So maybe that's your problem. Maybe you haven't had good German coffee.
Maybe. I don't know.
I have to send the word over to my friends overseas and see if I can get a can of good.
I would take a sip of it, but I've yet to have good coffee that doesn't have like a bajillion scoops of sugar and creamer. To get coffee to taste good, then I think all health benefits go out the window.
There is some health benefits, obviously, with fresh brewed coffee, and we can go into that, but we're not going to do that today. That's a whole nother podcast. Okay. We'll talk about coffee in general, I think, in a future one. But I know we're coming to the end of our time, and I wanted to give you just a final opportunity, the future of your ministry here. What is the short-term and long-term future for Christ culture here in this area?
Well, I mean, hopefully it's exactly that. Hopefully it is a long-term future. I will always have a heart for the college campus in some way, shape, or form. I will always want to be involved with the church, with a ministry that has a heart for a college campus, just because, again, the statistics are what they are.
Yep.
And again, the big difference is even if someone who's in youth that gets taken to church kicking and screaming because mom and dad are making them,
right,
they're still getting poured into.
Sure.
With on the college campus, like, it is entirely their decision. But like, this is a group that, if they catch the vision, like, this is the next generation of the local church. And not for nothing, like, as much as I love college campus, the reason I do what I do through Christ Baptist Church, through local church in general, is because I have a heart for the local church. But just for the Lord's calling for me to do college ministry, would do it within the confines of the local church. I want to be a part of a church that always loves college students. I'm married now. My wife and I just bought our first house this summer. Like, there's things that we bring to the table, maybe from almost like a wisdom perspective, that we can provide for college. And when I wasn't married, I could be late nights on college campus or hanging out with people and stuff like that. Can't quite do that as much anymore, but that's okay. I can minister in different ways.
Yeah.
I want to obviously the ministry continue to grow. But I would love to raise up a couple interns and I'd love to develop that next generation.
Right.
And again, as the church would continue to grow, like, the Lord's given me literally my dream job, and it's something where I want to see this ministry grow.
Sure, yeah.
And I think I've really kind of grown some spiritual maturity over the past year or two, that I can do this position better than I certainly could the first year or two. And there's also just, you learn from things that don't work, and there's just it's a learning experience. But obviously, I want to see the ministry continue to grow, to build someone up, to equip them, and at very least bring them in and help me and partner alongside with me. And my heart is just to see this college and career ministry grow, to see this church grow, not just from a numbers perspective, but so that people, eternities can be changed, so that we can bring people, and those maybe who are, even if they're in the ministry like we are, maybe they can start a small group within this church. Maybe they can be a part of a small group, like, where they're doing things, where they're leading, they're involved within the church, and they're raising their family up in a love for the Lord. That's what I'd love to see.
One of the challenges I've seen just in church ministry in general, I mean, I've been doing this for almost 30 years, and a friend of mine, Jim Hamilton, he pastors the church I left, actually, up in Alaska. He's a really good guy. And he told me something that was very profound about 10 years ago. He said, Al, most people think that they are on the meat side of their discipleship plan. Because Paul talks about the fact
Yeah.
in Corinthians,
Yeah.
like, you wanted the meat, but you couldn't handle the meat.
Yeah.
I had to give you the
The
milk.
milk. Yeah.
And most people like to think themselves in the meat side, but most people, myself included, are probably more on the milk side
Yeah.
than we are in the meat. And I see that culture wise, I see that with the church. It's one of the things that I would love to see is a small kernel of individuals in the church growing so deep that
Yeah.
they move from the milk to the meat,
Yeah.
and then allow that meat to give them what they need so that they can go on and disciple and replicate
Correct.
that. So, I
Correct.
mean, that to me is the heart of any real good, successful ministry, is
Yeah.
that transition. So that being said, the last question is, what are your thoughts on how you're going to transition some of the folks you're meeting today, making the transition from that initial conversation to bringing them to that meat level you're talking about, to where they can maybe even move into ministry later on and do what you do?
Um, the spirit's got to be in it.
Yeah.
it I've got to be as intentional. I've got to have as much grit as possible. I've got to be consistent, as consistent as they will allow.
Right. Right.
Because again, you can't. These are
If
not
they don't
people that
let
you
you in,
can.
they can't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can't do anything about it.
Right.
You can't force your way in. But if they see that, man, like, he cares about me, he wants to invest in me, he wants to know my story.
Right.
Even if we don't see eye to eye on everything right away, that's okay. I still am going to care about them and love them where they're at. That's all I can do.
Right.
And just be consistent. And sometimes persistence pays. Some people are, you talk to them once and they're ready.
Right.
I wish everyone was that way, but that is not the majority.
Yeah. A
You
lot of
got
times you gotta
you
work
got to
them.
kind
You
of
gotta
keep
work with them.
knocking at that door.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, I mean, it's got to be the spirit. I've got to put in the work. I've got to do everything I can under my power. But ultimately, if I get them in, and I've got to provide them a Thursday night atmosphere that's loving, that's welcoming. They come on Sunday morning. It's our churches, and I think our church does an amazing job of this. I
Yeah.
think we've grown a ton, really, even the time that we've both been
Sure.
on
Yeah. I think
staff.
so
Like,
too. Yeah.
I think the church has become super welcoming. And are we the flashiest church? No, but I
Yeah.
think we're real.
We're getting
And
there. We don't have a fog machine.
if that's the reason you come to church, like, you're not going to find this here. And as much as he jokes about it, you're never going to find
You're
this
never
here.
gonna find a fog.
But like, it's a real church. It's real
Yeah.
people they care about. Are they perfect? No.
Yeah.
But they love Jesus, and they
Is that
love
like
people.
is that the tagline that we're thinking about adding to our logo? We're so real people.
I think it does really depict
We
our church well.
Yeah, we put that on the banner that we did
Okay,
there.
okay.
So, like, real people,
Is it real
real faith,
faith?
real hope.
Yeah, yeah, and again, I think that's genuinely true about where our church
Yeah.
is at right now, and so I'm really proud of that.
Yeah.
So again, if you're a Christ Baptist Church member, like, I'll say this, and normally it's dangerous to speak for Al, but I will. Like, we are genuinely proud to be
Very
on
much
staff
so.
with you,
Yeah.
with and for you guys, because it is, you guys love people well. When this college ministry started, I don't know if that was quite a strength of the church,
Yeah.
but I don't have to worry about if a college student comes. Like, I know people are going to, more people than the names are going to be able to remember, are going to say hi to them on a Sunday morning,
Right.
going to want to hear their story a little
Yeah.
bit, and that helps a lot. It really does.
Right.
But ultimately, again, it's the spirit.
Right.
And it
It is.
is, if we do what we can control, it's still not a guarantee that they're gonna stick, that they're gonna plug in. But all I can do is work hard, have that grit, love them where they're at, and Lord willing, they come here, they have a good experience, they plug
Yeah.
in. And if once they plug in, they're pretty consistent.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I found that, when we can make that transition from just the visitor stage, or the
Yeah.
the first time there, to, like, if they come back a second or a third time, they're usually here for us for 3
Yes.
years,
Yes.
what their entire college experience,
Yes.
so.
Yeah, and so that's the thing. Statistically, most people don't end up doing that. And so for me, I'm always trying to learn, like, what can I do to try up that percentage a little bit?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
there is no magic
there
potion.
isn't.
And
It's the Holy Spirit
it
doing
is,
it,
it
yeah.
is. And so just trust in the Spirit's guidance, putting the work in.
Yep.
And again, once they stick around, like, pretty uniformly, like, all of my people, I've seen spiritual growth in.
Yeah. That's
And
kinda
so
cool.
that's the goal. And because he's one of my best friends, I'm going to put his name out there. And this is the
Yeah,
last thing I'll probably say, but like, Nico Miller,
yeah.
like,
I'm gonna have him. I'm gonna have Nico.
Okay, Nico was just for those of you guys who maybe don't know him, and again, if I was gonna have him on this, it'd be able to put a face with the name.
Maybe next week I can get him in here.
But he was the person I referenced earlier. He never went to college. He's one of my leaders now. We only met him 3 years ago. He wasn't even very good at text messaging. Like, he was very introverted.
He attended different churches.
Well, but I'm not holding that against him. But just was very, very introverted. Probably wasn't even, if you guys don't, I don't know how interested he even was in being part of a college and career ministry.
Right.
Plot twist, now he periodically helps lead worship on Sunday mornings.
We have him on stage singing.
Yeah.
He's learning the piano so he can do more.
Yeah, he's one of my leaders on Thursday nights.
Yeah.
And again, like that, so it's an easy one to point to.
Right.
And because I'm sure if he watches, he'll get a little embarrassed, but it's worth it. Like, when people have plugged in and stuck, like, we've seen a lot of growth. And so that is the goal.
Right.
And it's just about trying to get more people to stick. And again, doing everything I can to, doing everything we can to make that happen. We're doing the work and trusting God for the provision, the outcome.
I think a lot of it comes back to identity.
Yeah.
And we're always looking to make an impact in the world. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that on my next actual real podcast this Thursday. We're going to talk a little bit about living it with intention, focusing on our impact in the larger world. But that being said, I think our time is up, and we've spent enough time rambling. But I want to thank everybody for visiting and having a conversation with us, and just reminding you that to keep the coffee hot, keep the faith real, and keep the conversation going. Thanks, Trevor, for coming in.
Thanks for having me.